It is a new week, which means there is a new challenge moon. Compared to last week, this week's moon isn't quite as dangerous. It's still definitely tricky, and there are definitely ways to die. But I think the biggest bottleneck for this moon is more figuring out how to bring back as many items as possible rather than trying to dodge like a ton of enemies or anything like that. There are definitely quite a few outside spawns, including a giant, a dog, and at least 4 baboon hawks, although there could definitely be more. The hawks are probably the biggest run killers since they mostly spawn close to the ship and can quickly end up in a bigger group that will just decide to kill you while you're carrying back items. The giant and the dog both spawn pretty late in the day and also pretty far away from the ship, so they aren't really much of an issue most of the time. The dog can even end up fighting with the hawks, which if that happens, it really neutralizes both of those threats and makes it completely free to run around outside later in the day. From watching other people's runs, I know that there's a bracken, a snare flea, and a thumper that spawn inside, but in my runs, I hardly came across anything inside the facility. I think if you stay away from the deep parts of the facility before 4 p.m. or so, there's really no danger inside. As far as the items go, there are a lot of two-handed items that make inventory management a bit of a challenge. The placement of the two-handed items inside also makes it tricky to take one and still leave with a full inventory. They're kind of spaced out a lot of times away from any other one-handed items that you can really grab. I figured out a pretty good route here where I managed to take 5 full inventories back, plus a few bonus items at the very end. My goal for this run was to try and break 1,000 scrap, but after doing quite a few runs, 938 was the best I was able to manage, and here's the run. Okay, so like I said in the intro, this moon is definitely a lot safer than last week. It's definitely not completely safe, but there's definitely not quite as many ways to die. You don't have to deal with like 3 dogs and a worm outside at the very start of the day. So we do have a good amount of time here to kind of run around before things start to get dangerous at all. I'm going to grab this tea kettle here and just drop it downstairs. We're going to come back through this stairwell a number of times to grab items. And we're going to route over towards one of the fire exits now. The reason we don't just go directly to the fire exit that we're going to leave through is that there's actually a locked door, and it kind of prevents us from getting a full set of items and accessing a gift box that's got a really valuable item in it. So we want to grab that gift box, and this door here is locked. Fire exit is right on the other side. So if we came in through this fire exit, we wouldn't be able to grab that gift box. And would have to route, if we're going to run all the way down here to get a key and get that gift box, we may as well just leave through this fire exit. And I kind of fumble around with the items here for a bit. For a second, I thought that the stop sign had despawned. It's actually just like in a wall here, because that's just how this game works sometimes. And we're going to take our first inventory back to the ship before 10 a.m. And there's definitely a few points in this run where it's, definitely a time save to do this pick up and drop trick, but also I definitely lost time in a few spots on previous runs by doing this and then like walking into, actually I do it here by walking into those boulders. There's other times where I would just like walk backwards into a tree or something, so a little harder to do this trick on March than something like Assurance or Offense where the map is a little bit more open. I don't have as many like rocks and trees to deal with. But still probably a time save overall if you're able to do it, without bumping into stuff. And yeah, one of the gift box that I opened there was a set of bottles worth 67, which is like one of the highest value items on the map. And we get to bring it back to the ship in a gift box, which is a one-handed item that only weighs 19 pounds. So that's pretty nice. Definitely worth grabbing there. And we're going to come back into this stairwell to grab these 2 sets of bottles and bring them back over towards the other fire exit, just so we can take them out with some of the one-handed items that are in that big locker room there. And I actually just saw the snare flea there, which I think that might actually be the first time I've even seen the snare flea in one of my runs. I know it spawns just from watching some other people's videos, but I'm pretty sure that's the first time I've seen it. And we'll use that trick there to get out through the fire exit without having to go all the way up the stairs, which is pretty nice. And here I'm just going to grab these 3 one-handed items. The reason why we're doing this and not taking a full inventory will become apparent a little bit later in the run, but it's also worth noting that all 3 of those items weigh 0 pounds, the 2 fishes and the Rubik's Cube. And we'll go back with this inventory now. This is the heaviest we're going to be for the entire run, just because of that yield sign and the bolt. Yield signs weigh 42 pounds and usually only sell for like 30 credits, which is pretty terrible. But honestly, there aren't many two-handed items above 30 in this run. It's probably worth taking back on this particular moon. There's a lot of sheet metal and stuff that's like worth like literally like 10, 15 credits. So, you know, I'll hoof it with a yield sign to get the extra 15 credits. And we did have one of the baboon hawks on us there. I think there's only one that actually like spawns in this early in the day, so it's just one, and luckily it decides to leave us alone. And yeah, we'll drop these items off. We're actually not going to go back to that fire exit now. We're going to go to kind of this front left fire exit here. I'm trying to get through this part of the map early in the day because a lot of times the baboon hawks will just end up patrolling kind of this left side of the ship over towards this fire exit. And there is actually even a hawk that spawns over here a little bit later in the day. We're definitely going to run into him. So this fire exit is actually very close to the other one we were just at. This one is just right across that locker room that we were in. And we're literally just coming over here just for this gift box, because there's something in, I think it's another set of bottles that's in here, and it's also worth like 60. So definitely worth grabbing. And now we'll go over towards Maine to grab the apparatus, and yeah, there is that hawk there. I'm just literally letting my stamina get all the way up here before I run away from him, just so I can put as much distance as possible and hope that it will just leave me alone. And it's actually probably a little bit faster to drop this gift box outside and like run around inside and get all the items. But I did that on a previous run and the baboon hawk stole the item. It stole the gift box, so I didn't really feel like risking that again. So I just bring the gift box in with me. It's really not gonna take up that much time. And yeah, there's 2 other two-handed items in that room. There's an axle and bottles, but there's just like no one-handed items anywhere around here. So it's just really not worth going for those. And there's even another axle out by the main as well. But again, there's just not really an efficient way to make use of those items. Grabbing the apparatus is, you know, definitely the best two-handed item in that area, and there's just no other one-handed items to work with, so you get more value out of grabbing full inventories from the other exits. And luckily that hawk has gone away. I had a couple runs where it would kind of linger by the main, and when I would come out with the apparatus, it would literally chase me all the way back to the ship and end up killing me. Fortunately, that does not happen this time around. We get back pretty safely. And honestly, my pace here isn't great. I think it's just because I fumbled around with the items by that fire exit. I've actually had plenty of runs where I would drop this set of items off with the apparatus in that gift box like before 6 p.m. So we're a little behind schedule here, but it's still definitely workable. We're coming back over to this exit to grab another set of items. And still at this point in the day, the only spawns that are out, as far as I know, are just the baboon hawks. Definitely trying to keep an eye out for those and hoping that they don't chase me around. We do see one up on top of the hill here. And unfortunately, they just run straight down to me. I'm trying not to look at them, because I think if you look at them, it kind of makes them more aggressive. So I'm just trying to sort of ignore them. Unfortunately, this one does decide that it wants to attack me. I'm trying to get away from it as best I can, but it's not really working out. And it does like a weird spin there. And we go critical here again, which I didn't even know that was possible. I guess now we're limping actually. So that's probably why. And yeah, I'm just going to wait in the ship for a sec for my stamina to come back. And you can kind of flip-flop the order of some of these trips depending on where the baboon hawks are. You don't have to do things exactly in the order that I'm doing them, but just because I knew the baboon hawks were kind of over by that one fire exit, I decided I would come back here to get these items and just hope that they sort of move over to some other area. And technically we could be taking out even a slightly more full inventory here. There is a sheet metal that's in that room right by the fire exit. But I was kind of worried that if I took that sheet metal, I would just be a little too heavy and a little too slow. I haven't actually tried it, and with better luck with the hawks not coming after you, it's probably possible to take that out and just get like another, I think that sheet metal is worth like 17, and another $17. But again, I was just worried about being a little too heavy and not having enough time to get back to the ship. And it's actually a good thing I do that because the ending of this route is very, very tight. I almost don't make it. So we're going back over to this fire exit one last time to grab the last set of items. We still have those 3 one-handed items down here, the 2 fishes and the Rubik's Cube, so I'm going to grab those. I'm just trying to keep my stamina up. And there I'm doing the crouch spam technique. I don't know if I talked about this in my last video, but if you spam crouch while you're sprinting, you actually don't make noise. And that can be pretty useful for avoiding dogs and things like that. The dog does spawn over here, and it's definitely late enough in the day that it can be around. So I was just trying to avoid that, although it probably wouldn't have mattered too much because the hawks are still making a bunch of noise and they would have just brought the dog over anyway. And this is why I left those 3 like weightless items, the 0-pound items over there. It's so I can grab this beehive as the last thing in the day. And I'm doing this trick to kind of avoid the bees. If you stand on the edge of that fire exit, like the concrete, they just can't get to you for some reason. I'm really not sure why. And the reason we do this as the last thing in the day is that once you do that trick, the bees do just end up flying around the map and they can just randomly kill you. So doing it as the last thing is probably the safest way to go. And yeah, we just get back onto the ship with barely enough time, right as it's taking off. But I managed to collect everything and we end up with 938 scrap, which is pretty good. I don't know how much more I'm going to grind this moon this week. I'm getting into doing 10 quota solo runs, so I think that's probably what I'll be paying more attention to this week. But yeah, next week when the new challenge moon drops, I'll definitely do a run for it.
Booyah!